Oh, goodness. Goodness. Right then, I can't even blame this on a beginner's lag. I think this is just sort of structural. Okay, so good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a game called But Fear Itself, which I presume is derived from the old phrase, we've nothing to fear but fear itself. So... oh, blast. So, I was sold on this game as it being about a laboratory. A laboratory that smacks you in the face. What is this? Some sort of small brick. Some sort of small brick that plays music, and that's about all I know. Apparently it's about some sort of laboratory and the people that work there. May I read this note, please? Possibly. Everything seems to have frozen and all of the buttons aren't doing anything. Here we are. Mr. Williams, I am writing this letter to notify you of a recent discovery. Since I have to leave town tomorrow, I won't be able to meet you in person before then. Please keep this strictly and fully confidential. I have been spending the last few nights researching discovery number 62. I love that we number our discoveries. Upon doing so, I stumbled upon what can only be described as a live debug log of reality. Essentially, it's a stream of data with intelligible symbols which seem to coincide with a great variety of situations. For example, every time I opened the door, the log emitted a strange string of symbols. It emitted a different set when I sat down in the chair and when I spoke. I believe it also registered what I spoke. I have the suspicion that we might have stumbled upon not only the world's most efficient surveillance system, but a world-shattering realization of fabric of reality itself. How exciting. Thank you, Mr. Miller. So, yes, it's supposed to be a strange sort of horror game in a sort of a laboratory, and you wander around looking for letters, and there are apparently 5 letters to be found and to be read. And it was described as the type of horror being you're alone in a very sort of large, empty, maze-like environment. This door is locked. Is this perhaps the exit? Is this perhaps the place where I leave? Can I run? I can sort of run. If I press shift, I go a little bit faster. I've also realised that my mouse isn't contained within the game, so occasionally it wanders over onto the other screen and into OBS. I'm going to have to be careful not to click anything, or else I may screw up the recording totally. So, sorry, there was a sort of strange visual effect there. I think it was just a product of the pixelization. It was almost as if my sort of head was kind of turning to the side slightly, almost as if it was sort of tilting over. It was most strange, but never mind. Let's see what else we can find. I don't know if there's any kind of bad guys or anything. It did say something in the... this is locked as well? This is strange. Where am I going? Where am I going? There were boxes here a minute ago. And more of the lights are failing. And now this is open. And now I feel like we're playing the back rooms, judging by this colour, which doesn't enthuse me inordinately, but never mind. This is a bit mysterious. I like it though. Okay, we found 2 more letters. Mr. Williams, once again our schedules do not seem to match, and I find myself forced to share my research with written means. You could just, like, call him, you know, but never mind. I hope we managed to find a moment to talk in person, as I am finding myself forced to withhold some data when communicating through this medium, again for security reasons. That said, I am going to say that I have done further research on Discovery 63. I am doing so in expectations of my... in doing so, I can't even read... I've seen my expectations fulfilled and surpassed. I am not completely sure how to say this, but it would seem as if I've discovered the source code of reality, bricks of programming that determine every possible action and outcome. And honestly, whoever programmed said code should be fired. It is so poorly designed and unpolished. I probably wrote it then. I honestly believe I could make a better job of working on it. An aspect that has really baffled me is how people were treated by said code, and every aspect of a person is connected, even beyond themselves and into their impact on the world. Think of the grandfather paradox, whatever that is, mentioned when talking about fictional time travel, as opposed to real time travel. If a grandson goes back in time and kills their grandfather, then they would never have been born, thus the grandfather would never have died, and so on. If the grandson were to kill the grandfather through this code, then the grandson would die too, but the grandfather would remain dead. Continues in the other page. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. I see. Continue from previous page. This is all theoretical, of course. I am going to see if I can access this sort of command console and test, very carefully, of course, this theory out. If we're able to meet in person by then, I will send another letter. I would really prefer to find this option nevertheless. Sincerely, a friend who would rather remain unnamed. P.S. I have heard you've been hanging out with Dora Vilabia. We used to be together back before you were hired. In fact, she used to have your job. I know her. She's manipulative and she'll probably hurt you to get your job. She's emotionally unstable and not to be trusted. Cut ties with her as soon as you can, for your own sake. Oh dear. Seems like there's a bit... What is it with these boxes randomly vanishing into thin air? It's all a bit mysterious. Seems there was a little bit of a rivalry going on for somebody's affections, perhaps. Or possibly not. Perhaps I'm reading too much into it. But, that's interesting. That's a strange and curious little idea. So we're sort of going with a kind of we're all living in a computer simulation, perhaps, and everything's sort of being programmed from the outside somehow. And this scientist was able to stumble upon the... Yeah, that's where I started from. That's good. I didn't remember there being a door before there, and I got a little confused by it, but never mind, it doesn't matter. Perhaps this door has opened now. I don't remember this light being on before. Yes, and the scientist has sort of stumbled upon some kind of ability to look out into the real world, as it were. Indeed. Oh, goodness! I was going to say a staircase, but actually it's more of a ramp. Never mind. What have we here? Some sort of window, perhaps? Oh no, I think it is a barrier, actually. Yeah, some sort of banister, perhaps. Goodness. This is very strange. I do quite like this art style. You don't see this art style very often these days, or at least I don't. I don't claim to play everything in the world, but I do play quite a lot of things in the world. So, yeah, I don't see this kind of extremely pixelated style very often these days. Okay, I could go that way, towards the infinite smoky abyss, or I could go this way, towards the strangely colourful abyss. What have we here? Some sort of... Oh, goodness, I clicked. I shouldn't have clicked. Did I screw anything? I don't think I did. Everything still seems to be alright. Goodness, it's scary when I do that. I don't think I can go forward or do anything here. I don't think I've got a jump or anything, so I can just look at this weird portal. Okay. I'm going to presume that was discovery number 64, where they realised they could actually, leave the Matrix or whatever it is, and then go out and meet whoever it was that wrote that terrible bit of code, which, as I previously alluded to, is likely to have been me. Not because I'm ambitious enough in order to write a computer simulation, but I am rubbish enough in order to write a dreadful one. What on earth is all this? I doubt you will read this letter, as you've clearly not read the last ones I sent you. I did, actually. I mean, maybe the person you sent them to didn't, but I did. This nosy postman that I am. I feel obligated to let you know of the consequences of your betrayal. To be honest, it is my fault for expecting you to stick up to your fellow man. But it is clear you are not a real man. A real man would not believe the crazy ramblings of a deranged female. A real man would not risk the career and life of a friend because of a female's claims. I feel like I'm speaking to a Ferengi. A real man would let logic govern him over primal natural needs. I read it in the log. You promised her protection. You promised her a lawyer. You basically promised you'd do everything in your power to take me down. But you won't with my latest discovery. I've God's powers at my fingertips, and tonight, surely after you've read this, I'll change reality. I'll delete Dora from this world. And both her and the memories you have of her will be gone. She'll be out of our lives for good, and my career will be intact once more. By the time you read this, you'll have a few seconds to call her one last time before I make full use of discovery number 64. Indeed. Where's the phone, then? Am I that person, or am I somebody else entirely? I don't know. I don't think I can actually press these buttons. I think they're just for show. Is there anything around the back? There is not. Am I actually moving forward? I don't think I am. No, I'm not. I'm slightly too portly to fit in there. Alright. Oh! That was I thought we were reading something off the screen. I do apologise. I'm not very bright. I'm not exactly a scientific expert person. Alright then, do I now need to go and interact with the infinite portal of scariness? Is that exactly what I need to do? Perhaps that's it. So I really do find myself wondering whether I am the person that the letters are addressed to, or whether I'm just some poor numpty that waltzed in here by accident? I really don't know. Well, this leads into something I read on my desk. This leads into something I read on the manual, because instead of giving a readme, it gave us kind of a relatively nice, well-written, sort of well-presented kind of PDF. Oh! I thought we were in a loading screen of some kind. We're not. We're just sort of standing here looking at something. Oh, I do apologise. Yeah, in the manual at the bottom it said you need to survive for 10 minutes, and I just noticed that the recording had just gone over 10 minutes. It took 15 years for the portal to the subworld to be opened once more. Distance Labs immediately began investigating this new dimension and probably found a strange structure. It was a replica of the original Distance Lab building, except for a lot of missing rooms. Inside the building, they found a human corpse who was never identified. The corpse was amazingly preserved, except they still couldn't identify who it was. Thanks to the lack of any sort of life in the subworld, the cause of death seemed to be a combination of hypothermia and dehydration. I think that means being very cold and, well, obviously very dry. Further studies showed that the man had been pacing around the building in the time before his demise. Oh good, that's me. Some papers were found. Said papers referenced people from the early days of Distance Labs and were signed by Adam Miller. However, there are no records of any Adam Miller working for Distance Labs, and the people in the letters had no recollection of them, nor the events they describe. That must be because of the him wiping their memories via Discovery 64. Considering the letters seem to be shortly before the great Distance Lab memory loss of 2008, that little thing, but we all forgot about it, A, because it was a memory loss, and B, because of the financial crisis, it would seem the event had a viable explanation. Alright. Oh, the end. Thank you for playing. That's very kind of you. Thank you for making this nice little game. I like this, actually. It's a little bit weird and a little bit strange. It's not strictly a horror game, per se. It's a little bit more sort of... I don't know, is cosmic the right word to describe it? Sort of existential horror, I suppose. I suppose this sort of fear that somebody else has this sort of enormous power over you, and they can use that to wipe your memory or change your reality or control your life in almost any way at all. But yeah, I like it. I like the art style. I like the little bit of sound design that it has when it has it, and I like the slightly unusual nature of the spookiness. So that was rather nice. I rather enjoyed that. I hope you did as well.